This is For the Governed, a podcast series brought to you by Athalonz. Here are your hosts, Tim Markison and Ron Cates.
Welcome to another interesting Athalonz podcast. I'm Ron Cates. With me, as always, is Tim Markison, the CEO and founder of Athalonz. This is the third in a three-part series, so check out the other two. And it's about the key aspects of a golf shoe. This is the one that I find most fascinating. It's how the foot interfaces within the shoe, basically.
Right.
So take it away, Tim. Tell us about that and how important it is and what can be done to improve it.
Yeah. So let me just recap the three key aspects. The first aspect we talked about in the first podcast was how the shoe interacts with the ground. So that's where traction really comes into play. The second one is how the forces traverse through the shoe to the advantage of the athlete or to the detriment. So the advantage is how Athalonz did their shoe. We direct ground reaction force towards the body. Most shoes that we've looked at, or actually all shoes that we've looked at, have somewhat of a U-shaped, which directs ground reaction force away from the body, which is a disadvantage to the golfer. So this aspect is what's happening in the shoe during the golf swing with respect to the foot and how it's engaging the ground. So when we start looking at the foot within the shoe, you know, the ground reaction force is really with respect to pushing into the ground pushing back. Well, our leg, when we're in an athletic stance, is coming into the ground at an angle. Well, that angle creates a horizontal force, and it also creates a perpendicular force. So the ground reaction force corresponds to the perpendicular force. But, you know, within the shoe, if there's not enough to counteract that horizontal force that we're generating by pushing into the shoe, your foot's going to move in that shoe. So, you know, and I've gotten really accustomed to watching the golfers on the professional golfers, and I watch their back foot. And if they have it close enough, you can see their foot moving in the shoe because they know they want to keep that angle of the leg going towards the body. They want to keep the knee on the inside of that line from the groin to the ankle. So, but the shoe is actually pushing them outwards. So they have to manipulate within the shoe their foot so they can keep that angle. Well, all that manipulation is wasted energy, and it also creates timing issues. And then the other thing that it does without, you know, so like a lot of golf shoes now are going towards a lighter upper, so even like a knit material. So there's really nothing when I'm pushing on my foot this way on the outside of the shoe, there's really nothing stopping it. So my foot is literally doing this in the shoe as I'm taking my backswing. So that's even adding to the sway. So, you know, what Athalonz has done is with a little bit of slope that we have in the forefoot, well, that's giving the foot something to push against. So when the foot is pushing, we're holding that into place. And then we have an extra strap on the outside to really hold that foot into place. So if you watch somebody hitting in our shoe and you look at their back foot during the backswing and then the downswing, their foot's not moving in that shoe. The shoe is holding the foot exactly where the athlete wants it to stay. So there's no wasted energy. There's no wasted movement. There's no added timing manipulations.
So two things. One is you could have, no matter the most amazing cleat pattern or tread pattern in the outsole you want it, but if you're moving around inside the shoe, that's almost a waste because, and we're not talking about fit. Obviously, the shoe has to fit well.
Right.
But beyond that, if you have a flexible upper, you're moving around the insides of the shoe.
Right. So, I mean, there's no question that tread pattern is important, but that's what every other golf shoe is focused on. And that's going to keep you from slipping, which is a key. I mean, you can't slip when you're trying to hit a golf ball. It just won't work. But, you know, what we've looked at is the whole physics of the body-ground connection. You know, the foot to the shoe to the ground, and then what's going on between the ground and the foot. So all of those things can be optimized with respect to the golf swing because we want that foot to stay locked in. We want the forces to go more toward the ground reaction forces to go more towards the body. So we can just create a more efficient stance, more stable, more power going into, or more forces going into the body.
So for anyone who's ever watched track and field, you know, at the Olympics, one thing you notice that every sprinter uses starting blocks.
Right.
So this nice firm thing to push off of, pretty much the same thing is built into the shoe with the outside being built up so you can push against that. Yes.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy for those that know track and field. Now, our angle isn't near as steep as the sprinter blocks, but it's the same kind of principle. It just gives you something to push off of, so when you're starting, your foot doesn't slip. You can just go in the direction that you want to, and that's kind of the same thing that our shoes do with that slope in the forefoot.
I have another question. The midsole, a lot of shoes now have these really soft, spongy midsoles. Ours is firm on purpose. Could you talk about that?
Right. So with respect to a soft insole, it's going to feel nice on the foot because it's going to compress and then it releases. So when you let go, so you're walking on springs essentially. But every time you compress and it lets go, it takes a certain amount of energy to compress, and there's going to be energy loss. So every time it decompresses, there's energy loss. So the less compression you can have in the shoe, the better the energy transfer from your foot to the ground through the shoe is going to be. So that it's less waste of energy in the shoe, but the firmer the midsole is.
So now you've basically covered all three aspects of how a golf shoe should work.
Right. And we incorporated all those aspects into the Athalonz shoe.
That's part of the reason it has 13 patents.
Right.
Yeah.
And 2 more just issued, so we'll be up to a total of 15 on the shoes.
Excellent.
Yeah.